We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break. What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And a big welcome to you at home. Enjoy the next 2 hours, all the usual favourites. And Steve Hasty will be joining us. He's on his way back from his last job today. But it is a big welcome back to Keith Patterson tonight. Hiya, Keith.
How are we doing?
Good to see you, mate. We'd actually planned on you coming on this show anyway. I'd asked you at the start of the week. You just had to see whether you could juggle things around. But it couldn't have been a better show to have you on. So welcome to that. Welcome along. Plenty, as always, to pick the bones out of. Mitch, we're starting with you tonight. And yeah, I think it would be remiss if we didn't start with the news that Darren Eales will be stepping down in due course. The sad news that came out of St James's Park has been described as a bombshell by NUFC.com. Just to give people, those who are unaware of it, he's to step down from his position after being diagnosed with a chronic form of blood cancer. He is going to continue to lead Newcastle United's executive team until a successor is appointed. So yeah, big news. I've just watched his interview as well before we came on air this evening. He's done a face-to-face with the club and put it out there. He seems very optimistic, pragmatic, and it's just not nice to hear, Mitch, in this circumstances, in these kind of circumstances, that Darren has to step down because of that.
As the club, we can't catch a break, can we? At the minute, and that's awful news. I think we can only extend our love and best wishes to Darren and his family as he takes on a very new challenge and a difficult challenge medically, no doubt. I think the club have handled it exceptionally well. I think his interview was top class. I've got to say that, frank and honest. And for all I've been critical of Darren over the last few weeks, the one thing I will say I do that is coming from the point of a critical friend of the club. At the end of the day, everybody wants the best for Newcastle United, and there's no doubt that was in his mind too. And when a situation like this arises, it's one of the things we can look at and say this is a time to pull together as a club and a fan base and send well. I think we look at this now. The club are at an interesting crossroads, and no doubt he'll have a big part to play to guide whoever comes in forward, and I'm sure he will. And it's not the news anybody was expecting to hear, and I think it was really quite. It's a difficult situation and a sad situation, and one seeing some of the reactions. The one thing I will say that Darren Eales has very much done, and everybody seems to be responding in the same way, and having had the pleasure of his company for a long time in Saudi when he was first appointed the stew. Everybody, talks about how affable he is and how likeable he is and approachable. He's certainly all of that. But from the responses I've seen so far on social media this afternoon, what he's actually done for Newcastle United is made a lot of friends in the football family. And that's something as a club we really needed after the takeover, because, we were painted as well, certainly where owners were painted as the bad guys by so many people. And so for him to have had an impact with other clubs by reaching out, by being approachable, by being affable, and making friends within the football family the way he obviously has, that's a genuine feather in his cap. I just would not like to have found it out this way.
Keith, it was a shock to hear about Darren Eales, to be fair. What was your take when you heard the news today?
Shock. When you go through your life and the doctor says to you you've got cancer, that's a bombshell. But when you read things, I'm delighted he's got optimism, and people debate what is a good cancer to get, and I think the short answer is none. But people talk about different cancers that are recoverable from. When you hear someone's got chronic blood cancer, it's people don't have a choice whether they get it or not. And when you do get it, it's where you get it and what nature you get it. And when someone says got chronic blood, it tells you that it's in his blood, and there's the treatments you get now have moved on so far, and so quickly. After the takeover, I got diagnosed by two general hospitals, and told I was clear. There's nothing the matter with it. And for some stupid reason, the week the Queen died, I spent money and went down country and got a third opinion and found out I had advanced cancer, and I had to quickly get rid of it, quickly be operated on with 2 weeks. To go through that, you don't really want to hear any more stories. You just want to recover. But when you hear somebody's, 1 minute is fit and he's your CEO in the club, and there's little bits of things going on, and you're looking for clarity, you're looking for explanation. And when you do that, you do look to the top. You do look to the CEO, and then you find out him and his family's been fighting with this. The empathy I've got for that, the understanding and being in them shoes of getting shell-shocked. Just somebody saying, "Oh, that lump's cancerous," or "that lump's malignant, it's not benign," is the words that so many listeners will have had themselves. And when it comes to you, there's nothing compares. There's nothing can come in somebody's life. It's like weird. Like people have had heart attacks, have had pain, or it's hit them suddenly, and then people tell you what the symptoms are and what the recovery route is. But when people come to you and say that horrible word, "You've got cancer," the next question is, where is it? How bad is it? And how will I recover from it? And I think it's absolutely monumental today that he's done an interview and said two things. One, I'm optimistic, and two, I'm going to be here till my successor comes in. I mean, you know, he's got a hefty pair of balls, and they sometimes say when people's up against it and behind the 8 ball, that's when you find out the character of somebody. You know, they always say you never find out how good people are till things go wrong. But by Christ, you know what I mean? Hats off to him. He's took it on. For him even to think about Newcastle United, he's got a much bigger battle on his hands. And, you know, the sad part is that when he recovers, Newcastle will be here. And that's where I hope and I wish his focus was, is just on getting better. So, you know, I think the things that's going on at Newcastle at the minute will add to anybody's, I don't know, problems or task list. And Darren Eales has got a task of getting himself better. It's massive. I was blown over. I tell you what, I was listening to Radio Newcastle at work, and it came on the news, and I just thought, what? And the first instinct is Darren Eales is stepping down. And I thought, you know, has there been a fallout, or has there been something? And then the next sentence just numbed the whole. There was 3 Newcastle supporters in earshot, and then everyone just went quiet, looked at each other. And when people, so they must have had some prior knowledge, because when you get the point to say he's got chronic blood cancer, that's like the diagnosis of the depth and the seriousness of it all. And I don't know, I just wasn't ready for it. And I wasn't really, I don't know. I was hoping at the end of this weekend that our Ryan coming over, which I questioned on Twitter, you know, wonder why he's here. And I think we all got the answers to that. You know, I don't think he was here for anything that's happening at Man City. And I don't think he's here for anything really other than that. He's head man at the football club. It's poorly. And I guess I was more optimistic that at the end of the weekend, we might have heard that Al Ramain had got together with everybody and we're all on one page and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe yesterday when, you know, Lawton and Co were putting out things about Man City, maybe Newcastle were optimistic that associated party transactions were going to be going in our favour. After today, I thought that's all irrelevant. That's all trivia. That's just football, and there's bigger things in life than football. And you people watching this show, you'll have lost family, or you'll have family that's been poorly, and it just puts into perspective. You know, when you've got someone who's poorly, or you've lost somebody, or somebody's that you've got in your life at the minute struggling, whether we play Man City tomorrow or not doesn't matter as much. And I just hope, you know, from the bottom of my heart that there's no bravado or no, I don't know, compromise to him getting everything and getting better, and that we do quickly find a CEO that can come in and pick up the reins. Because you saw the trouble we had in getting the director of football in. It was quite a long, drawn, lengthy affair. And I don't think I think when Darren's getting his treatment, he doesn't need a lengthy affair to get his replacement. You know, I think that the PIF and the Rubens should take hold of that problem of getting his replacement and should make his involvement minimal so that he gets maximum coverage from his medical side. Yeah.
Terry Armstrong, our thoughts are with you as well. Sadly, Terry's been diagnosed with cancer for the second time in his life this week. So, Terry, thoughts with you as well. I can see a lot of support in the chat for you as well. Big thanks to Ray Burr as well for the donation today. George, I'm sure you just want to reiterate what Neil and Keith have said about Darren.
Well, 3 emotions when I heard it. Firstly, my thoughts and prayers to Darren Eales and his family. Because it's a desperate situation, don't care who you are. Second emotion was been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Because almost 23 years ago, seems crazy now, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And to give you some idea of the position I was in, a diseased prostate usually gets about the size of a large walnut or a plum. Mine was the size of a small orange or a small melon or a large orange, depending which doctor you talk to. It took them 3 months to decide what to do with this. And it worked out that I could get surgery that would put me right. But that 3 months was incredible. My son up there, he knew, and his mum knew. My PA at the university knew, but nobody else knew. Because I knew what would happen. There would be a deluge of phone calls and people wanting information that nobody could give any answers to. The only person that could give the answers were the doctors. So I can imagine what the Eales family are going through now. The third emotion is to put my hands up and say, well, if anybody on this panel was critical of Darren, I've got to say I've more than once stuck my head above that parapet. And now that I understand his situation, if he's been waiting that diagnosis for the time that he's been here, then getting up and singing the Bladen races in Newcastle in the stack, he's a bloody brave man. You know, my criticism is so trivial after that. He's a brave man if he could get up and still do that and put that smiley face on when all of that he's facing. So that's the third emotion is, my criticism was as a friend of Newcastle United, not necessarily directed personally at Darren. And as I say, when he could get up and do that, knowing what was in the back of his mind, what he was waiting for, I do find it absolutely incredible he was able to carry on in that way. So more strength to his arm, more power to his arm, and finish where I started with my thoughts and prayers for him and his family, because they'll not know what they face until they actually start doing the treatment, and that won't be easy for any of the family. So but Newcastle United Football Club, well, as Neil says, we're not getting much of a break at the moment. Everything's turning sour one way and another, but we have a capacity as Magpies to turn it on its head, and I think this is something else we could turn on its head. We've got friends that can help out, I'm sure, and would be happy to help out if Darren needed it while these replacements being found. So I'm not too upset about what'll happen, because he's again shown his bravery and saying what he has, that he wants to make sure Newcastle's all right. Well done, Darren. We can't only say thank you to you for that, and to your family for letting you. I know the pressure I was there at home when I was going to work every day with this horrible lump in my insides, and so different cancer. But as Keith said, it's not what type it is; it's the word. Once you get the word, that's what sets it off. And so, good luck and prayers and thoughts for the whole Eales family.
Yep, Mark Byers, I think a lot of people can agree with your sentiment. He says, I think we all feel a semblance of guilt after our criticism of him singing at the stack when he was going through diagnosis. We weren't to know hindsight is a wonderful thing. So, yeah, Mark, I think that's where we'll finish with that collectively, and we'll bring Steve Hasty in just to give his views on the news from Darren Eales' blood cancer diagnosis, Steve.
Yes, bolt out of the blue, big shock. I mean, heart goes out to the family. I hope Darren is okay in himself, and I hope he gets all the treatment that he needs and comes through this. It must be a big shock for him, but also a big shock for the family and all these friends. So all the best, Darren. I think the lads have summed up probably 99.9999% of Newcastle fans' feelings on the situation. So I don't think I need to dwell on it anymore, Steve, other than say, get well soon, Darren. We're all rooting for you.
Well said, Steve. And thanks to everybody who's put in their comments in the chat as well. I'm sure that those at the club who monitor podcast will pass them on for you at some point. Barry, thank you. I've seen lots of people who have made a comment in the chat about the fanzine. Thanks very much. And we do have a little announcement about that tonight. After the funds were totted up, obviously the postage envelopes had to be paid for. But a big thank you to Penny Print for giving us a huge discount on the print bill. They couldn't do it for free, but they did give us a huge discount for each issue. We also have to thank Rob Maltman for designing the entire fanzine for free. We do know that the print needs to be slightly bigger in the next one, and probably a less of a garish print on some of the pages. But all in all, even those with bad eyesight have been able to read it, which is great. But the compliments coming in have been absolutely fantastic from one and all. We've only sold 185. There are still 15 fanzine subscriptions left. One person has bought an individual one. Every penny counts, of course, which is fantastic. Lots of people as well came in and well, some people bought 10 copies and asked us to pass them on to people, which I've duly done. But I'm delighted to say that collectively, NUFC Matters, all the guys on the screen, everybody behind the scenes as well, everyone who has done their bit, whether write something or retweet it or share it or whatever, spread the word that we were going to do 200 limited edition fanzines. We have been able to send over last night £2,939.96 to Dementia Matters. That idea started 8 weeks ago. 8 weeks ago, I thought about doing the fanzine after we'd discussed it with John last year. We talked about doing a magazine. I said no last year. I've got to be perfectly honest. I just couldn't be bothered to go back into the world of a fanzine. But I've got to say, having had the discussions with Rob Maltman and other people, everyone's saying they were willing to put their weight and their time and effort into it. And the fact that the dementia charity is desperate for money, and obviously me, Joe Allen and Leslie St. John are ambassadors for them. They need help. So we obviously did the Christmas get together, the end of season get together, which raised £1,200, which we donated. So yeah, £2,939.36. We will hit £3,000 if people who haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. £20, 4 issues, newcastlelegends.com. Get yourself onto there, and we will be able to hit them with a little bit more cash. But thank you for all your help, and more things to come with Dementia Matters. Watch this space. Okay, let's get away from the behind the scenes at Newcastle. Let's talk about football. And I'm not going to look at Eddie Howe's press conference, not quite yet anyway. Let's talk about Anthony Gordon, because it was part of Eddie's press conference where he was asked about Anthony Gordon's potential contract. As always, Eddie gave his little, well, it's news to me, and obviously would like him to stay, etc. But news starting to filter out that there is a contract being offered to Anthony Gordon, which potentially will keep him at the club till 2029, 2030. It sounds like there won't be a release clause in it as well. But if there is a contract offer and it's on the table, it should be a matter of time, I would imagine, Mitch, before Anthony signs it. And hopefully that settles him down a bit, I think probably is the best way to say it.
I think some of the journalists who are usually reasonably spot on are saying it's pretty much done, that it's going to tie into the club for a decent length of time. It's the right way to go with your crown jewels. You wrap them up onto good contracts with additional incentives within the contracts and put them on contracts for a period of time. That means that they're not just going to walk out the club for nothing in a couple of years. And I think that's absolutely the way we should be treating our best players. And if anything helps to settle him down, and if anything helps to, he's definitely come back from the Euros unhappy for one reason or another. My understanding is more about the way he was treated in the England camp. It has upset him significantly, and that he's needed a lot of reassurance going forward in terms of feeling unwanted by Southgate and feeling like, what did I go to that tournament for? And so, to get the best out of him, he needs to be happy in every single way. And we need to be saying to him, you are one of the people we are prepared to build a team around going forward. And that should send a message to other players that this is what we want to do. We want to keep the best players here and build a squad that's going to improve build a squad that's going to challenge for Champions League every year, and then some. And so I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's very well done, whoever's been behind it. And if it is announced in the next couple of days that it's signed and done, well done, everybody in Newcastle United.
Yeah, George. I mean, Anthony Gordon signing a new contract, it would be great news.
Great news, more than great news. It would be a sin if we even thought about allowing him to get out of across the Tyne Bridge to anywhere else. No, it's wonderful. I mean, even when we're saying that he hasn't been at his best, he's still been too good for other teams to play against. So I'm really, it would be can't imagine how we would let him go. They should sell the family silver to make sure he stays, is my opinion. The other thing is a lot of the talk about him being unsettled. I think Neil's hit the nail on the head, because that's what I was going to say. I think what happened with Southgate in the summer was a tragedy for Anthony Gordon. He was celebrated being selected. He was treated like a second-class citizen, absolutely second-class citizen. And if you listen to his interview when he come home, some of the side issues he quoted about how when the interviewer said, "Did we not do well?" and he said, "No, because we didn't win." And he asked Anthony Gordon why we didn't win. He said, "Well, we weren't allowed to express ourselves," were I think the words he used. Well, can you imagine that young man sitting in the dressing room listening to all of that in the team talks? He's not a shink invited. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he hasn't had something to say about what was happening on the field, like the young man from Real Madrid did apparently as well. He had something to say. So to come back so disappointed after that, I'm not surprised he started the season in a bit of a limp, a bit of a hiccup. So let's get him put right. Let's get his signed on the paper, on the dotted line, and settle down for a Anthony Gordon that will become close to being, I hope, good enough to having a statue in about 10 years out St James's Park or wherever we are, because that's how good his potential is. That's how good his potential is, and it would be amazing for that to happen. And people need to remember, already he's more than tripled the goals he scored in all the time he was at Everton. Not just as flash in the pan. So yes, please, sell the family silver. Do what the hell you like, but keep Anthony Gordon at St James's Park.
Steve, you've just been given a lookalike there. People saying you're looking like a young Anthony Gordon tonight. That's quite a compliment, considering Keith's on the show and we'll probably have a dog.
I think we're going to have to get this show sponsored by Specsavers. I really do. Anthony Gordon, you know what? Let's put this into perspective a little bit. Anthony Gordon had a wonderful season. He then went into a massive high of being selected for the England squad for the Euros. Played out of his skin in the games prior to the Euros and the squad being announced. Played in the friendlies. So he went to that tournament on a high. He then had to cope with the speculation that was coming out of certain national newspapers that Newcastle were trying to sell him. So it was as though the carpet was being pulled from under his feet at the time. So he must have gone from a high to a starting to question what's going on back home. And if you follow, and we've seen it on the strapline already, we follow what some of the Liverpool players in the England squad have said. Anthony was convinced he was going to Liverpool. And I think there was an awful lot in that, to be perfectly honest. He then played the first game, comes on with matter of 2 minutes to go. And in that 2 minutes, he did more than some of the players had done in the previous 88. He looked as though he had a spark about him. And he came off that pitch. I think he was the one that was put forward to be spoken to by the press and interviewed. He let his feelings be known. The lad was back on a high again. This was his big opportunity. Everybody in the country expected him to make the team and be in the first 11 for the second Euros game, and it didn't transpire. and so on and so on and so on, and he never got a look in. The only thing he did during the Euros, other than sit, was fall off his bike. And if the stories I heard, which were that certain players had to intervene when he was away, and certain people in Newcastle had to intervene and talk to him and try and boost his confidence and try and pick him up off the floor, because that's where he was, then I'm not surprised. And that means I'm not surprised with the way that he started the season. He must have really felt like the carpet had been pulled from under him. And I don't think he ever got an explanation from Southgate as to why he wasn't selected. Southgate just made a decision, and from, again, some of the reports that quoted Anthony Gordon, he said that he never got an explanation. It was just the team was announced and he sat there and just waited and nothing ever transpired. Now, that's poor management if that's the case. Very, very poor management, and very disappointed that Southgate, who made such a song and dance about the way that he was looking after his squad and his players. So if there's any truth in that, then the questions need to be asked of Southgate and why that happened. So we then look at this announcement that we've offered him, and hopefully he's accepted an extension on his contract. The talk of a Liverpool move, which, as I say, I'm convinced had an awful lot behind it, has gone. The Liverpool have moved on, Newcastle United have moved on, and the lad himself has had to move on, and the offer of an extended contract, and I think it was probably quite astute by his team at the time to give him to accept such a short contract, a 2.5-year contract, I think it was, at Newcastle United when he signed. So he obviously has the confidence to feel as though that he can go and didn't need the protection of a long-term contract, and now he's going to get that protection, and it's up to him to accept it. But his value and for Newcastle United has skyrocketed, so he now needs to roll his socks up, shake off any disappointment that he might have had, and start performing for Newcastle United. And I'm sure he will, because I think he's that sort of lad. I think he's the sort of person who realizes that he's got the ability, he's got everything going for him. And I think sometimes we forget that these players are just young. They're just young lads, 22, 23, start of his career, second move, a lot going on in their private life in terms of families and such like, and traveling. So, let's cut him some slack. Those fans who have been questioning his selection, and let's move on, and let's hope that we see the Anthony Gordon of last season carrying on for the rest of this season and gets us into the top four, and we're in Europe, and who knows, challenging for trophies as well.
Yeah, Anthony Gordon not got off to the greatest of starts, Keith. I mean, I hear where people are coming from when they say, the Euros might have affected him, etc. But that some of our big name players maybe haven't got off to a great start because they're affected by this and affected by that. But it's the same for everybody. Everyone was involved. Every top level player was involved in the Euros in some capacity. I'm not one for that, but I definitely think something's happened with Gordon over the summer. Doesn't look at his best. And maybe it's just collectively. Eddie keeps saying it's collectively within the team that there's that they haven't been performing. But Gordon, maybe that will settle him if he gets a new contract and he's more focused on his future being at Newcastle.
If I got a call today, like we got a call about Darren Eales' illness, it shocks you. If I got a call today to say Newcastle sold Anthony Gordon for 70 million, I'd be gutted. And I would just think, why? And how are you going to build a team up? Because we can debate all night how many class players we've got. I think we have 3 players in that squad that would walk and would play every week in the top 6. So I don't think Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, all them, I don't think they could stop Isak, Bruno or Gordon playing their teams. When I look at what they've got, I think all them 3 play in them teams and they would push players out. That's how good I think they are. And I think we've got 3 crown jewels at Newcastle. I think we need more. Botman hopefully will be the next one coming through. And we talk, you can go on forever talking about your fullbacks that we've bought, young kids, and this, that, and the other, and Tenali. Right now, I think he's one of our top 3 players. And to me, if he'd sold for 100 million and said, I wanted to move back to my hometown club that I supported as a kid, which is Liverpool, then I'd accept it. But if Newcastle had cashed in under PSR, and I'm a fan who's gutted that we've lost Anderson, absolutely gutted. I had massive faith in that kid. And to me, he's proved being player of the month at Forest. For me, way better than the Willocks of the world. And for me, I'd have him in that midfield all day long. But Gordon's just got something special. He's got a pace. When he came on, did that England interview, he said, I felt as if he put on against anybody, I could beat anyone. And he's a young kid. He's articulate, but he'll have had the stuffing kicked out of him. And if I was away with England, achieving like a life ambition, and I find out Newcastle's going to sell us, I'd be devastated. And I wouldn't return the same player. I'd come back pissed off. I'd be sitting there thinking, why me? And if I was Anderson, I'd be fed up, and I can understand why Minter was chewing, because something went wrong at Newcastle United with PSR. The rumour is they were going to sell Joe Linton and then Amanda give him a deal. But whatever the rumours were, it should have been better planned and they should have done it. But why it came to Gordon and why people expect him not to be upset is surreal. The lad he's like a litmus paper for Newcastle, I'll tell you. And that's why I did a tweet this week and mentioned him by name. If I was Al Rahman and come to the club, I'd say, why is that kid walking around looking so disillusioned? Why is he not looking fit? Why is he not wanting to take people on? Because last season he was a world beater. And I'm sorry, you don't become a world beater 1 year and 3 months later not be a world beater. You either are capable of taking people on and beating them. And he's running past people like they're not there. Seriously, he did that much in that England team in 2 minutes because he's that much better than the people he was replacing. And the man it was to fault is the idiot. And I don't care what anyone says. I'm just a football fan. I'm not no clever podcaster. I'm not no clever bloke that knows who he's talking about. I'm just a football fan that passionately bleeds what I say. And Southgate, what he did with him was tragic. And I tell you what, I'll take it back to when he came off the pitch, he got interviewed, and he just told the truth. He just said, well, you know, maybe we haven't clicked so well. And he was more articulate and more forceful in what he was saying. And that's why I think he didn't play anymore. I think everything else is bullshit. So Anthony Gordon comes to Newcastle. He sets the world on fire last year, and it was unplayable at times. And then all of a sudden this season he's not. So that's what I was saying in my tweet. Why is Anthony Gordon not looking hungry and looking aggressive? And why does he look tight? And to me, the lad needs an arm putting around him. He's crown jewels. He needs caring for. It's at times like this, great management teams. I'm not about the manager. I'm not about the management team. I'm not about people off. I'm on about Graham Jones. I'm on about Tyndall, Howe, Mitchell, Bonds, everybody. They should be all over him like a rash. And they should say, look, son, whatever's gone is gone. And we're going to get you back to better than what you were last year. And to me, you lose Anthony Gordon and you lose your progress. Like if you'd lost Isaac or Bruno over the summer. And with all this, we know it's about the squad, about building 14 to 16 top players. If any of them, like Man City, if any of them play, they know they've got a chance. By Christ, you can't get 3 gems and sell one of them. And I promise you, getting 70s and 80 millions for people like that, backward step. And I've heard debates this week about who's the best on the left-hand side, Barnes or Gordon. No comparison. If you know, Barnes is our best player this season, but if anyone thinks that sell Gordon and Barnes will fill that role, it's chalk. Honestly, he is right up there with the best in the EPL and as good as anyone in Europe. And when you're looking to buy a right winger at the start of the season, and you look at people like the Crystal Palace lads that went, and look at Easy, he's come on. He's not close to Gordon. When he was coming on that pitch for England, he wasn't even close. Gordon's way better than him. He's got the one thing that people cannot handle, and that's pace. He's got a second thing to complement that. He's got self-belief. Anthony Gordon thinks he is brilliant because he is. There's a lot of players, don't have that self-belief. And they've got the skill and they've got the talent to never ever become great players because they haven't got the belief. Anthony Gordon's outstanding self-belief. So what I'm saying to you is use the litmus test he gives you. He's telling you things aren't quite right for him, but things aren't quite right at the club. And that's when the management team should come forward, get hold of them and make them great again and give them the confidence. And Christ almighty, if he got a couple of goals in the next couple of weeks, the kid will start bouncing again. But sign him on, give him a contract and build your team around him. But do not let him go, because if you let him go, you're going backwards.
Okay, good stuff. You're watching the 3 Amigos on NUFC Matters. And if you're a regular on a Friday, you know that we've got a lot to get through. And we like to have a laugh. So here is Tweet of the Week. Wow, where do we start this week? Well, there was a boxing match last weekend, or was it a game of Twister with Anthony Gordon, with Anthony Joshua? There was so many things got sent out, and of course, the reason that Anthony Joshua has done so badly was revealed on Twitter, and that is because Anthony Joshua had his photo taken at the top of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Since then, he's lost all of the belts, which is obviously the Spurs effect. So there we go. And the pre-show entertainment before the boxing was Liam Gallagher, and people that have spent £300 on a waitress ticket, Liam Gallagher singing at the boxing. Yeah, very good. Some great stuff coming from that. I'm not going to dwell too much on cooked breakfasts today, but this one did tickle us. 101 donations with Keir Starmer and a load of sausages in front of him. Dear me, how he's had an absolute Tony Blair this week, hasn't he? And when you've got afternoon tea at 3 o'clock and yoga at 5:30, fantastic hat that, by the way. Really, I've seen it all now. And painted my chicken coop. Egg production tripled in only 3 days.
Bet it did.
Last week we found a square root. This week we've got a threesome, lads.
Wow. Right.
Very, very good. And a singing one. I'm in the mood for dancing, romancing. Very good. I like that one. And married life isn't so bad once you get used to it, says Alex. Paddy Power, here's their contribution this week. Some Rangers fans claiming Celtic's opponents last night were the worst team in the competition's history. How quickly they forget. Rangers become worst ever team in Champions League group stage history. That was in 2022. So, short memories when to you who's been quoted as the worst team in the past. Vintage Tupperware here, lads. A foot bath, a meat defroster, a puke bucket, potato salad and popcorn bowl. Yes, it had many uses, that little yellow bowl. I certainly had one in there in my mum and dad's house.
Christmas one.
Yes, exactly. And outside this Toby restaurant, someone's overdone it with the gravy, as you can see there. Great to have celebrity families featured on this section as well. Here's a lovely picture of Ed Sheeran and his mum. I have been inundated with signs over the course of the last few weeks. This one from Jimmy, the inventor of autocorrect, died. The funnel will be held tomato. Notice how I said tomato for you, Jimmy, instead of tomato. There you go, mate. I'm even chucking in a little of Americanism. Domino's Pizza with a difference.
Yeah.
And another singing one for me. You've been struck by a smooth caramel. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
lots of them coming in. This one was sent to us on numerous occasions. I'm not going to read it out, but I am going to read what it says underneath. Please don't laugh at our village's funny name. I wonder what 3 words are for that. It can't be any more offensive. Might be time for a rebrand on this one. And if you're easily offended, or probably best to cover your eyes with this one. When Freddie sends you a dick pic.
Oh my God!
Very good. It's just a sausage, everyone. It's just a sausage.
Hostage.
And exactly, a sort of hostage. For sale, parachute only, used once, never opened. And I would say no. Canned fish microwave soup. Very
God
good.
almighty.
Very good. Who on earth planned that? And Stephen Kennedy sent us this one. Money don't matter. Rich people. Looks don't matter. Attractive people. Nothing really matters. People who just killed a man. Very clever. Very clever, Stephen. I like that one. I really did as well. Stephen also sent us this one. Let me help you. Random acts of kindness. Very good. And in case you wondered, chocolate fingers do float in the bath, George.
Yeah.
And apparently 400 years ago wasn't great either.
Yes.
And Stephen Kennedy as well, he was on form this week. Back in the day, there were health and safety issues in the home workplace, as a young Steve Hasty can vouch for.
Cheers, Stephen. Dragging me into it.
And no, you can't. B&Q, you can do it. Unfortunate sign outside of the lorry crashing into a bridge. And Brad's tweet, massive crack in Antarctica ice shelf grows 11 miles in only 6 days. The reply to it, all because of that squirrel and his stupid acorn.
Yeah.
God almighty.
And look, I'm not saying kids today don't have it tough in school, but we had to chew these and everyone knew who didn't brush their teeth. Very, very good. Very true. Remember them as well. You've got to be of a certain age to remember them. And a paper straw and a plastic wrapper. The green movement in a single picture. This one was shown after the game last weekend. Just seen this. Arsenal's bus at the end of the City match.
Well, if they will park it there.
They will, yes. And play that funky music. White Boy. Very good.
Oh.
Very good. One more sign or two more signs have we got. Autopsy Club meeting Saturday, open mic night. And I think I'll go the long way around. Collins back passage, slippy when wet. I am afraid of no toast. There's avocado on a bit of toast. And I hate people who can't let go of the past, lads. Debt collectors are the worst. McDonald's sign tonight as well. Drive through, try our anus burger. I think I'll be driving a bit quicker if I was going through there. And a hot beverage, anyone? Urinal. Stephen, where do you shop, mate? Where do you shop? And this guy really does need to make his mind up. Yes, a luminous jacket and camouflage trousers. And this one as well. I can't see that one. I've lost the imagery on here, so I'm gonna have to go with this one. They finally did it, lads. And light switches in the toilet as well. I like them. Very good. Very clever. And a perfect phone case doesn't exist. It's a good suggestion for a phone case, that. Aye. And vegan hot dog, anyone? And these ones really, these were just pictures that were sent to us this week. That's an invasion of crabs at a beach party.
Christ almighty.
Have you seen them? Unbelievable, that. And this one, an alligator caught in America. Wait till you see this, lad.
Jesus.
Yeah, me.
That is huge. That is real. That is real. So yeah, thanks for sharing them. Somebody sent them in. I think it might have been Jimmy. What kind of disability is this? And I found my spirit animal. A pig in Australia steals 18 beers from campers, gets drunk and fights a cow. And this is how we unfriended people in the 1970s. 5 more. I can read this one now. Chris Eubanker said he has just written a book about ethics. If it is successful, he said he'll write one about Kent and Surrey too. Top 4. G'day, mate. Aussie Helpline here. I'm in Darwin with Sheila, and she's been stung on the minge by a wasp. And now her pussy's completely closed up. Bummer, mate. Thanks, mate. I hadn't thought of that. Bye. Top 3. Safe, secure, protected with minimal charges, just like Prince Andrew, allegedly. That is apparently a real sign in America. Thank you for that one, Jimmy. I love that. This one, number 2, Allegiant Airlines charges for a glass of water, but you know what's free? Ice. Now we wait.
Oh, dear me. Oh,
And Jimmy sent us in that many this week. He's got to be the winner. So I've picked this one, Jimmy. He says, I've literally waited my entire lifetime to see this. The cow jumping over the moon, lads.
Yeah.
oh, well done, Jimmy.
Jimmy Moore.
If you've got a tweet, send it to me at the Facebook group, join it, or at the Facebook page, like it, or on X at Steve Reid, and we will feature them next week. But if you are offended, you have to look away for that 5 minutes. Stephen says, not a bad Aussie accent. You should cast for home and away. I was waiting for somebody to say I didn't realise he was Welsh. But there you go. Thank you for that. 800 watching tonight. Great to see the figures, as always, on a Friday. You never let us down. 564 of you watching on YouTube. The rest of you watching on Twitter. Jump over onto YouTube, search NUFC Matters, and subscribe. It is free, and we still do 7 shows a week. Let's get something else in, just to say, Michael J put this up earlier. He says, shout out to Julie at Dubai Mags, who has somehow managed to sort out 5 hours of drinks and food for 50 quid tomorrow. It'll get messy. And just before we go to the ad break, Mitch, yeah, Julie, we've already featured her on the show. Sounds like a cracking day ahead for you tomorrow, mate.
Well, UBK do a regular Saturday brunch, and what they've agreed is for the Dubai Mags, if we go in for the Saturday brunch, they'll roll it into the offer that they do for us for drinks on the match day. So we end up with like, for about 50 quid, it's about 5 hours of all you can eat and all you can drink.
Fantastic.
Which it's not a bad deal, really. But the thing is, this is the relationship we've got with the hotel here. Mike will tell you he lives up in Russell Kamer. So when he comes down, we book a room in the hotel and they do corporate rates for it. So you can come down, and for less than it would cost him for a taxi back to Russell Kamer, you can stay in Dubai for the night. You know, it's these are the relationships that Julie's created out here. So for me, it's a doddle. You know, I've got a great platform that we can talk about today. I've got, you know, well connected on social media, and all I do these days is just direct traffic. It's fantastic.
Brilliant stuff. Great stuff. Big shout out to Julie. Enjoy tomorrow, everybody, in the Dubai Mags, and look forward to maybe one day coming and sampling a match with you.
Get your arse out here, man.
I will do. Halfway through the show, time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters Fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company, and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. Help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the matchday bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming, and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at the Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 tokens for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting tokens with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howie, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 tokens, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com.
And can I say a big thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the fanzine. Peter Jane and John Westray have just subscribed as well. We've got 11 left. So if anybody wants to take one, newcastlelegends.com to go and subscribe to the NUFC Matters fanzine. I'll be able to post the rest out. And there's a couple who are missing theirs. I'll be posting them out next week. But thank you, as I say, for everyone who has kindly subscribed. And just a reminder, if you didn't hear earlier on in the show, we have donated yesterday to Dementia Matters off the back of the fanzine, £2,939.36. Great amount that. All thanks to you out there who are watching the podcast and who've subscribed to the fanzine. Okay, we've got Keith on, not because of the news that was going to be breaking this week, just because every now and then we do get Keith on sporadically.
You got some dogs.
Maybe Ian Mearns is going to be coming back on the show. We do, Joe's become a permanent part of the show now, which is great. But it's nice to get Keith back, and it just happens that it's tied in with not any kind of announcement yet, but it's all to do with the Man City case. So we will start with Mitch, though. We'll keep the best till last on this particular subject, Keith. We'll start with you, Mitch, with regards to the Man City stuff. There's bits and bobs coming out, isn't there? There's stories coming out from various journalists. Nick DeMarco has now come out and said what he had to say on the matter, and he's put out a tweet. People are reading between the lines. What's been your overall view of what you've seen written and put out there this week?
Well, the significant thing for me for Nick DeMarco getting involved is talking about lack of transparency, and that's something that's a common theme with anything that he's been involved with, most recently with Leicester, and about how rules are applied, how the rules are or decisions are made. And the background to them seems shrouded in secrecy, and that shouldn't be the case. We've got 2 camps already. One camp of journalists who are usually spot on with their information, saying Man City has had a victory. We've got Tarek Panya, who, if you remember him from the takeover, has a particular anti-Saudi leaning because of geopolitics within the Arab world, but also works for the New York Times and therefore has a proclivity to protect American ownership interests in the Premier League, saying, well, the victory isn't that big anyway, and it's only over this database. Now, what's interesting, he's the only journalist saying what it's about. So where's he got that information from? And it's pretty clear that he was being leaked to by the Premier League during our takeover, for example. So we've got 2 different opinions. One which says there's a victory, one which says, well, it's a Pyrrhic victory. Well, which one is it? It feels like a damage limitation exercise to me by the Premier League to put something like that out. Because this database seems to be something that they've used for years to make their judgments on associated party transactions. And therefore, if that database is incorrect or illegal or there's something wrong with it, does that then mean every decision previously made about associated party transactions is incorrect? And therefore, is that then only really going to help Man City in their 115 charges with the Premier League? Or does that then mean every associated party transaction previous to this and subsequent has been incorrect, and therefore opens the floodgates for clubs like us with owners who have potential associated parties that may wish to sponsor Newcastle United at rates which the Premier League don't understand? And this is something that me and Stuart kept banging on about. What the value of a sponsorship of Newcastle United is in Europe may be very different in the Gulf region. And again, I'll come back to Noon. Our shirt sleeve sponsors, a direct competitor for Amazon in our region. And they were losing money hand over fist. And since they took on our shirt sleeve sponsorship, their losses have dropped quarter by quarter. And they directly attribute that to the exposure with Newcastle United in the region being the shirt sleeve sponsor of Newcastle United. So is that database not taking stuff like that into account? Because if it does, then yes, it might be a case that the floodgates open. But for me, I think we still need to know more before we start doing videos claiming that the money's coming, like some people already have, rather embarrassingly. Or are we in a position where we can introduce associated party transactions at different rates that have already been rejected, perhaps? Because that was something that was suggested to me and Stu over the summer, that we had some things lined up and they'd been rejected or put on hold by the Premier League. The Premier League like to put things into limbo where possible, because limbo is a great place for them because they're not spending legal fees on it, and yet it's not going to go through. Because they've already now been criticised heavily in the last couple of weeks for the legal bills that they've run up. The legal bills are going through the roof. There was one comment made regarding the Everton case by the Independent Commission saying that they were investigating the Premier League club failing PSR, not bringing down an international drugs cartel with the amount of legal bills that have run up. And so I'm kind of don't want to get too excited. And actually, we shouldn't know the outcome of it because by the rules I understand, that it's something that shouldn't be publicly disclosed. Yet why is one of the journalists talking about the database? So where's that come from? And again, it raises more questions. And I can't get overly excited about it, but I have to say, and I'll see what the other lads think, it does potentially seem like there's a door being knocked ajar that we could take things through, particularly as a vote on associated party transactions was pulled from the recent Premier League meeting too, which would suggest that things are going to be changed there and they can't vote on it because there's changes coming. It's like I say, I don't want to get too excited by it, but there is potentially opportunities there, I think. George, what's your thoughts on what's coming? Andy's pouring a little bit of damp water, I guess, on what lots of people are feeling or thinking. He says we're barking up the wrong tree if we think APT will have meaningful difference to us. Even if Man City have won, the rules will be rewritten by Premier League lawyers to still stifle what we want. Move on. Except that I would hope by then that Manchester City, Newcastle United and others that feel hard done by will put the thing in a real court and not some cobbled up tribunal. They nails the issues financially. The thing that interests me are always the legal things. And I've sat in court from magistrates court right up to Crown Court and sat on tribunals for arbitration with very senior people sitting in the chairs and all that sort of thing. The one thing in common with them all, whether it be from magistrates to High Court, is once you start talking about things not being transparent, you've got a problem. And isn't that
gentlemen, the main problem we've had with the Premier League since day one, nothing is transparent. And for Nick DeMarco at this early stage to come out and say it, a really, really top lawyer like him, then the Premier League's got a problem. And it's not, in this time, it's not going to go away, I don't think. They've brought these charges against Manchester City, and they could find themselves in a very embarrassing position at the end of it, because, yes, one of the tribunal its makeup will make it look like 2-1 to the Premier League. Yeah, but top lawyers aren't going to risk their reputation and their integrity to protect a rotten core. And in my view, the Premier League, in my view, is the rotten core, because they've defended the indefensible over and over again and got it. And remember, we started as the bad boys, and then suddenly we've got Everton, we've got Nottingham Forest, we've got Leicester. We reel them off now. They were starting to think, well, head on, it isn't these awkward Geordies, it's us as well. So if somebody like Nick DeMarco is talking about lack of transparency, then that's a huge, huge hole in anything that the Premier League's going to do. And if somebody's already touting around a database and a tribunal that's supposed to be secret, there's another hole. Goodness gracious me, that somebody is actually fed a journalist something from inside the walls of the tribunal. That could be serious enough to be contempt. And then if you get into issues of contempt, it suddenly becomes not a civil thing, not a Premier League thing. It could actually become a criminal thing. I mean, where do these people get their brains from? They just make me puke sometimes. They get these high and mighty jobs, and suddenly their brains turn to mush, like Starmer's has. I'm not going to go there. That's politics, and I'll go on forever. No, it's the lack of transparency thing I keep going back to. And as I say, when somebody like Nick DeMarco says it publicly, in my view, Premier League have a serious problem.
Steve?
Well, first thing is, if the rules have been deemed to be anti-competitive, then the rules are ripped up. Premier League then have to go back to basics, and they have to come up with a set of rules that will prove to be competitive, not breaching the rules of anti-competition, which is going to be very difficult for them in the short term. But we don't know what's transpired because of the secrecy. The database thing, I think it's a technicality. But I'm sure Keith will say you only have to win on an anti-competition law. They only have to win on one thing, and the rest of it falls. So maybe City have found one little aspect, they've won on it, and then everything else is tumbled. What I'm finding interesting is what the impact will be on the bigger case. 115 charges. How many of those 115 charges, if City have won this small case, fall by the wayside? Because a lot of City's defence on the big case will be, the PSR rules were wrong. They've been interpreted incorrectly, and we haven't, as far as we're concerned, we haven't done anything.
I've seen it said somewhere, Steve, that's about 50%.
There you go. So 115 charges down to, what's that, 65, let's say, 60. And then you'll get the experts still harping on it. It's going to take the case is going to take 3.5 months. There'll still not be a decision till April, May, all of that type of thing. Well, if you've only got half a case, you don't need to. So I think it should be out in the public. I think the Premier League owe it to clubs in the Football League who are trying to get into the Premier League to know exactly what the rules are and what can and can't be done, because they've tried their best to try and stifle the likes of Leicester when they've come up. That you look at what happened to Nottingham Forest when they came up, and I think on a more worrying way is the way that they've treated Man United and the way they've treated Chelsea in comparison to the way that they've treated the Nottingham Forests and the Evertons of this world just in the last 12 months. That tells you an awful lot about what the Premier League is really all about. It's about protecting what is already sitting at the top and to try and stifle us. And the very fact that the Premier League brought in a rule that they called the Newcastle rule, which is the one that Man City have taken on board, sums it up for me, Steve. So Nick DeMarco's right. It needs to be, the results need to be out in the open. The Premier League shouldn't have rules that say everything's quiet, everything's kept, because they've sat back for the last 6 months or longer, turning around and saying it's not our decision, it's the decision of the tribunal. It's all out of our hands, and we've got to abide by what it is. So if it comes out and they've proved that the rules are anti-competitive, then they have to fall. Simple as that.
Okay, people saying I should have a drum roll for Keith, but no, we need to go one. We need to go one better. The women are like this. And the lads are like this. Welcome back, Keith. Yeah, let's talk with Keith about that. So many questions that Keith, we've got people sending tweets in. Jerry Sue was asking earlier on today, with reported Manchester City v EPL win, could theoretically Newcastle claim against the EPL for loss of potential growth and anti-competitiveness since Newcastle rules were voted in? I just want to have some fun, that's all. We've had lots of stuff like that. We've had a question for you as well from somebody on Facebook, with Darren Eales stepping down. God bless him. The obvious question for the lads: do you think Amanda would come back as a CEO? That was another question. So we can talk about everything collectively. Keith, with you now, give us your thoughts firstly on the Man City case.
Tonight's show, like, I'm sitting here listening to all this going on, and there's pelters coming from everywhere, and what's happening in football, and we're talking about Ghana. Put all in perspective, if we go home tomorrow and it's all about Terry Armstrong and Darren Eales and them getting better, that puts everything in perspective. And all we can do is look at other things, and all I can do is take on a bit of a journey as to what's happening with Man City. And I've spoken to Nick DeMarco over the last week a few times, and I can give you some feedback there as to one of the comments John said about, getting it into real court and things like that, and put some perspective on it and show you how you could do it, and how instead of wishing, wanting and worrying, you could maybe take it on a stage further. But first thought I want to leave everyone with is on associated party transactions. If you can get this thought into your minds, that the only person that can ever determine the value of a sponsorship is the sponsor, not the seller of the sponsorship. Because if I'm going to buy a car off you and it's got something personal that was owned by something that means a lot to me, I might pay more for that car than what it's worth, because it's worth more to me. You've got to understand that. So the seller doesn't determine. And for Christ's sake, get this point clear. Who doesn't and shouldn't have any part in that valuation is the competitor of the seller. So that's so logical, and that is what Man City warned the Premier League. They said, if you don't change those Newcastle rules, if you don't change what you're voting through and associated party transactions, we will take you to court on competition law. So that's what Man City threatened. The Premier League, who are the other 19 clubs, ignored Man City's threat and allowed it to play out. So go back to what they did. They put a guy in who is the highest paid. He's the highest paid KC in that market. He's reputedly on £5,000 an hour. Top KCs are being paid more, 1,700 to £2,000 an hour. So that's how far Lord Panic is out in front. And what Man City did was they used Panic to challenge them on competition law, but don't forget, in an arbitration. And when you go into an arbitration, you're working with 3 retired judges, and they don't have the power in that whole transaction to hit people with what competition law hits you with. So competition law, for example, can fine you for 10 times your annual turnover. 10% of your annual turnover. It can also put people in jail if proved. But what competition law in effect normally does, it proves that things are unlawful and it crashes whatever is existent. So if a market exists with an unlawful cartel in it and it's proven wrong, it crashes that market. If somebody proved that PSR is anti-competitive, the consequence is it could destroy the Premier League in its existence the way it is now, and it could make changes come on monumental sizes. So competition law in a competition court is significantly different, bigger and more powerful than go to an arbitration. With respect, 3 brilliant retired judges, but Man City take them on a competition law will be for a purpose. So when you take Panic and his Man City team off this case and you say to them, right, what we're going to do now is we want you in the middle of fighting the 115 charges, we want you to take on this competition action on APT. The first thing fans like us have got to draw from that conclusion is they must have had some very detailed and some very solid evidence. They must have had evidence that would say, you'll not lose on this. And that's quite simple. Robert O'Donoghue at the time of the takeover said, if you could run that case, Keith, on competition law, the Premier League couldn't defeat you. So if Newcastle can run that case on competition law, they'll not defeat Newcastle. I'll come on that later. So what Panic has done, he said to Man City, run this competition action. Well, why? He must think that impacts the 115 charges. He hasn't run it for the good of Newcastle rules or the good of other clubs like Villa who's having a go. He's run it for Man City to minimise the charges they've levelled at them. So he must think in his legal mind, and one of the best there is around, that running that case the way he has would impact the 115 charges. And then you say, how would it impact it? Well, if you've run in a court action in an arbitration for Man City to try and take them to League Two and trying to wipe them off the face of the earth with a set of rules, it's much harder to run that rule book that Steve Hasty referred to if they are legal. If they're unlawful and illegal, how do you then run it? How do you run a court case where previous court has judged it's unlawful? So when Mitch and Steve have just said there, the same information I'm getting is that if there's 115 charges and they all of a sudden become 38 charges, you've not only just reduced the charges, you've undermined the whole process. Yeah. Because any guy of Panic's ilk will turn around and say, gentlemen, the first thing I want you to be aware of is that the charges against Manchester City are so desperate and so fanciful and so throw the kitchen sink and see what sticks. We've just taken 70% of the action away. So I think that's Man City's motivation. Personally, I hope I spoke to a couple of Newcastle fans said last Friday night. One of them said, well, I hope Man City get the book thrown at us. I said, you're mad. You're absolutely mad. If Man City get the book thrown at them, kiss goodbye to Newcastle's chances of ever catching up in the next few years. Man City have to win to prove what's happening out there. And we can endorse that this week with what Nick DeMarco said. So for Panic to come off the 115 charges and use the same legal team as he's using for the 115 charges, that APT must have had hellish relevance to the whole outcome of the case. He wouldn't have ran the case, forget the expense, it's petty cash. He wouldn't have ran the case, and it'll be millions, if he didn't think he could win and if he didn't have some evidence that would win a case. So he must have had some evidence, and his legal brain will have tested and double tested that. So I don't think the EPL could have won every point. You then come to why it's leaked. It's leaked to people like Lawton and Ziegler and others who in the past have been on the money. And you've got to think, I believe that Lawton jumped the gun a little bit. I think that he heard, I mean, on Wednesday night, they pulled a point off the agenda that was heard on Thursday. By Thursday morning, people are starting to leak into the press that some of the points that were up for discussion at the league owners, the club's meeting were being pulled, and people said because it's been pulled on the data bank, which is the vehicle that, suppose you're doing shirt sponsorships or sleeve sponsorships, they'll say, right, the data bank holds what every club in the Premiership are getting for sleeve sponsorships. They'll have them by club and all the information's there. Personally, I think it's quite anti-competitive, or maybe it's very, that you have a collection of values for what people are prepared or not prepared to pay, because if Man City turn around and they say, well, Etihad are opening a new airport in Manchester, or Etihad are going to bring 300 more planes to the UK, so they want more exposure, they have reason to want to pay more for shirt sponsorship than, say, Bovril, because they've got a new Oxo queue. It's not up to the person who's selling it, it's up to the person who's buying it. Remember that. So then, why would you have a bank of contacts and details that clubs refer to when you're all competing against each other? Surely the way to compete is to tell nobody who you're talking to and then just announce that's how much I've got. Why do you have to go to a chart and say what is the going rate for? It's like every pub in Spennymoor has got to find out what each is paying for beer. Surely it's your commercial advantage to get your beer as cheap as you can and sell it for as much as you can, and not tell your competitors. But in the Premier League, it's different. It's been done for a reason. And to go back to PSR, it was there to stop clubs going bust, but now it's there to protect a small group of companies' advantages and financial head starts. That's what PSR is about now. So when he uses these people to fight the case and somebody leaks things, and let's suppose it was leaked to Lawton Ziegler, who've been right in the past, versus Tariq Panier, who got leaks on Newcastle case, then you go back to what he was leaked. When he spoke and the Premier League leaked things to him during the case, they lost it. So whatever the Premier League's leaking to him, he's been wrong in the past. And I think what he's put out there is a desperate attempt to have a go at Middle Eastern clubs. I hope it is, but time will tell. Whether they win or lose, and whether they win associated parties or not, what I would do is I would move everything aside and I'll go to the statement that was put out this week, and it was put out by Nick DeMarco. And the reason I would put it out, because he's a high quality top three in what he does in dispute resolution. You've got Man City's Lewis, you've got Panic at Man City, and you've got Newcastle's favourite, Nick DeMarco. For me, biased, I think he's the best. And what he's saying, he's going on public record this week, and there's an article before yesterday where he said PSR is unfair and anti-competitive. Now, for Nick DeMarco to say that, in our words, what he's really said here is PSR's unlawful. So I'll take that. Unlawful means illegal. So what he's saying is the PSR that's governing all you people out there, all you fans, you people that queue, wait, lose parents who go and see people win trophies, and all that emotion. It's all there. And Nick DeMarco's giving you a heads up, and he's saying, guys, this is illegal. But he's not allowed to use them words. But when someone says something, so look, if you go on Google today and type in meaning of unlawful, illegal will come up. But that's the language. So if they think someone's a liar, they use the word disingenuous. George will tell you that. It's the same thing. So in our language, disingenuous is bent, corrupt, a liar. Their language is it's unlawful. If he proves it's unlawful, you're then in the realms of, PSR smashed, it's broken, and you're hoping Man City can edge it out. Going to what George said, because it's quite key here, George turned around and said, I would like to see people put it into a proper court. And the reason he wants it in a proper court is because a proper court has the sanctions what competition law gives you. Unfortunately, George, they can't. They're not allowed to. And the reason they can't is because when you join the EPL, you sign a document to say that you will not take a court action.
Yes.
So you agree to only go to arbitration, where you end up with 3 people on a panel, retired judges. Premier League pick one, the person who's taking the action picks the other, and then the third one you've got to agree on. It never gets agreed on. And then, believe it or not, the third one is done by the FA, which is the EPL. So in other words, you end up with a bench to start with, which is 2-1 against you. Despite that, don't underestimate, Nick DeMarco beat a panel in that nature for Leicester. So it can be done. But it's not the best place to take an action. So where do you go from there? To run an action, you need to demonstrate a loss. And clubs aren't allowed to run an action. So who could run an action? Who could take an action against the Premier League to smash it? 2 bodies. An associated company could, which is what we did at the takeover. Basically, we built up with our lawyers and spent crazy money and built the case up, and we put 6 points to the Premier League. In a 14-page letter, they tried to answer them, and they only could answer. They tried to answer these points. They tried to answer 2. And the KC, the council, said to us, in terms of quality of answers back from the Premier League, we reckon it's 3 out of 10. We think the 2 they've answered, you will win. Out the other claims, 3 of them couldn't be answered. So as Steve Acey said, you've only got to win 1 point in the competition law to win the whole thing. And we think we'd have won probably 5, on a bad day 4, and possibly 6. So we were going to smash it to pieces. We gave that case to the club, and then the club, I would say, and people like Liam Kennedy quantify this, probably 90 to 95% of that action that Newcastle United took was our action, and it was just tweaked on 1 point. So it was the same thing. We knew it would win. So did the EPL, and so did Newcastle's lawyers. And 2 legal teams in Newcastle took that in, and it was always going to get the takeover. So on my birthday, 29th of August, I was stood there. Steve Acey was there. Steve Wraith was there. They were down at my party, and they said, we think the takeover's over. Keith thinks it's still going to go through. And all my mates in the room were sat there going, you crackers, you just won't let it drop. And they thought I was wrong. The whole room thought I was wrong. That was the 29th of August. And I said, no, it's still going to go through. And the lawyers said it will go through, it's just going to take time. It went through in October. Today, the only way you're going to see competition action taken against the Premier League is through an associated party who can demonstrate loss. The key is they've got to demonstrate loss, or fans. This week, I've spoken to a couple of KCs, and they've said that fans now would be able to prove loss. And that's quite big, because where the Premier League's got all the 20 clubs banker rights, they haven't got 20 sets of fans banker rights. And what's happening in the background is your Leicesters, your Tottenhams, your Leicesters, your Sheffield United, Newcastle, Villa, Forest, and Everton. All these fans are getting pretty paid off with it all, and they're all getting fed up. And for me, I think the only way you'll see a competition action, DeMarco's told you what the results will be of a competition action, would win it. The only way you're going to see it is probably for a group action where a lot of fans groups get together. It's not about he's got this podcast, he's got that fanzine, he's got that flag show, whatever. It's about taking egos aside and just set the fund up. And where a fund would be quickly contributed to on a national basis. And it's where football clubs could make donations to it. Now, to me, if there was an action going to challenge competition law in this country, it's obvious that some of these clubs are going to come forward and stick money in. And we're not talking crazy amounts of money. So when I run it before, I'd commit to a £250,000 fund to run a CAT action, which is the smallest part of the competition. It's like it's a competition appeal tribunal, and they always heard quicker. But if you had something that was run for a competition appeal, you could run that for probably under £500,000. Now, if you had 8 clubs, that's 60,000 a club. But if you had Man City or Newcastle couldn't dollop the million in it, it is down the couch petty cash. You've then you're then in the big league, and there's KCs at the moment are looking at this, and there's KCs who've watched this, and they know. DeMarco said yesterday, he said the Premier League need to stop the secrecy and need to stop the hiding that's going on, and it's exactly what happened in the case of Newcastle. So if you remember, one night you put the news on, 6 o'clock news, and it came on that Newcastle United are in a legal case with the Premier League. Well, Newcastle were prohibited from saying that. They weren't allowed to discuss that. But that same day, the Premier League wrote to me and Gordon Stein and said to us that we can't run your competition action because we're in a court case with Newcastle United. We went to the club that day and said, oh, you didn't tell us you're in a court case. The club said, how do you know? We're not allowed to speak about it. And I said, that letter. And they just said, staggered. And so we went to the news channels, and that's how it made news. From that moment on, the case became public. From that moment on, Newcastle, Mike Ashley was very careful. He used St. James Park Holdings. Since then, they've turned that bolt off. You cannot use an associate company that you own, but you could certainly use a sponsor company. I'm certain Etihad could run a case to say their brand and advertising's being damaged because of what they're trying to do to Man City, which is anti-competitive. So I think other companies could take the action, or fans could. So for me, I think that's the route. Would I like to be involved? I wouldn't like to go through what I went through. I don't want all the death threats and all the silly trolls that come online, and all these people that coming on are the big sixes, less Man City and probably Chelsea. It's the red cartel. It's their fans that send you the abuse, because they know if they lose this, they lose their advantage. But take comfort out that the evidence actually exists. The evidence is already there. The evidence is out there, and you wouldn't lose. If a competition ever runs in a competition court in Britain against football that's going on, I've seen multiple sets of evidence, and I've put it in multiple locations in Britain for my safety, and you would not lose that case. Nick DeMarco is telling you free of charge. He's put his name on the line. He's more or less stopping the EPL want to use him, because he's saying it's anti-competitive. You've got to stop the secrecy. You've got to let people. It's wrong to fans what you're doing, and if they got in court, they'll smash this to pieces, and then you could have an even Steven where you say, right, if you want to spend 500 million on a team, put your 500 million in the bank, or stick something on account. So if you weren't in the club, or there was a tragedy like what happened at Leicester, you've left some backup to do it. And to me, you know, there's a lot of people a lot younger than me, and probably have less things going on in their lives who would run with this, but it doesn't need opinions. It doesn't need know-how. It doesn't need someone who's supported Newcastle or Aston Villa for 40 years to do this. What it needs somebody. I know where the KCs are that could run this. I know where the evidence is. What it needs fans to come together and raise money. And if they raise money, the KCs are ready to run the case, and the evidence is there. And a lot more evidence will come out when you did something called disclosure. Because when you do disclosure, we see the last time you farted, we see your text, your WhatsApps, we see everything, and you'll smash it to pieces. That's what I'm saying. And don't look at me, because I lost crazy money last time. It cost us an enormous amount of money. And if I told you that I stayed on a year after Gordon, and he was in it for 5 figures, that will tell you where it is. And that's why do you do it? Because you're a daft fan who starts supporting them back there, and you haven't seen them win now. So you think, well, why am I going to go to my box before seeing us win something? So you do these silly emotional things, but that's football for you. That's fans. And believe it or not, if this ever gets put on an even playing field again, I think it'll be fans that do it. But take heart that Nick DeMarco was literally, in a roundabout way, said, if you run this and you could get a case going, you'll win.
Great stuff. Wise words.
Yeah.
Lots of people very interested in it. Thanks for that insight, Keith. Half an hour left. We are going to get back to talking about football, but first a bit of this. And there is a couple for Keith. One from our friend Albert.
Been hanging on to that one for how many months? He's been hanging on to that since August.
Cross-eyed.
And this one is brilliant as well. Steve Aiken and Richard Branson. Brilliant stuff. There we go. There's that laugh for everybody as well back home. Back to the normal ones now. A Bosnian basketball player, Nihad Dedovic, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Very good, that, like. Very good. But he was actually asked about it. He said, no, my father's never been to Sweden. Zlatan replied, but my father has been to Bosnia. So there we go. Clears that up. A lookalike of me from Sutty. He says he was watching Max and Paddy, and who shows up in episode 4? Only flaming Steve Wraith. It looks more it's more like Sean Dyche, that mate, to be perfectly honest. Lookalike from Gary. Thanks for that, mate. God, that must have been a hell of a session with Mitch and Stu. That guy's been on, the guy on the right. And coming up to Christmas, so this one always seems to do the rounds at Christmas. What do you say? Your dog's arse. So East 17's Brian Harvey saying, and stay another day. Very. Oh no, it is brilliant. That it always seems to do the rounds.
Short, isn't it?
Stephen Kennedy, thanks for this. He says, if Steve Hasty was a chicken, he is on the left with the white hair. Thank you, Stephen. And down to the business end now. Gary Scott sent this one. If they were ever going to make a film about Elon Musk, I'd want him to be played by Kathy Bates.
Oh, definitely.
Christ.
Yeah.
Very good. I can't remember. I think it was Keith Gray who sent us. Bob Geldof on the right. And on the left, Steve?
Go on. Is it Joe Cocker?
I think it is a young Joe Cocker, you know. I can't remember who sent us that, but I had to put it together because it was sent in separate messages. So I think it was. This one was sent in late last night. Gary Neville and the guy from Prison Break.
That's good, that. It's really good.
Got a bit of a look. One of our local journalists features in the top 3, but we'll not come to him yet. Steve Hasty came in with number 3. Chrissy Hind and Kate Burley.
I sent that in just so Rita could see what a looky like is what's supposed to be like. You know.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. Number 2 is this one. A glitch in the matrix. Thank you, Dougie. You got number 2 this week. Looks like 2 identical blokes on the train.
Just doing identical things.
Very good. And the winner this week is Sutty, Craig Hope and Morrissey. Very good, Sutty. Very good. Two good ones this week. If you've got a lookalike, go to the Facebook group, join it, Facebook page, like it, or at Steve Wraith on X. Send them to me, and I will feature them next week. No Joe this week. Our thoughts with him. They've had a death in the family, and our thoughts go with Joe Walker this week. Thinking of you, mate, and hopefully you will be back with us very soon. But family's got to come first. So no Toon Tipster this week, but we do have Toon Stato.
Hello there. All the stats, the major stats before the big game tomorrow, early Saturday game against the reigning champions Manchester City. And all the best to Darren Eales and fast recovery. So, Newcastle has only 1 win in the league against Man City at home since 2005. That's 1 win in 19 years. Back in 2005, Michael Owen scored the goal. We won in 2019, goals by Matt Ritchie and Solomon Rondon. And let's see if we can win tomorrow. Now, the last 4 league defeats by Man City are all without Rodri, who is missing the rest of the season, which is a good omen for us. Newcastle is also looking to register 3 consecutive home wins at the start of a season since the 95-96 season. Actually, we are unbeaten at St. James's Park in the league for 10 games since we lost to Man City back in January. And Newcastle is on a run of 21 consecutive home games, scoring a goal, which is the longest run in the competition by any team. On the other hand, Man City have scored against Newcastle in 31 consecutive games, which is a record also on their side. Eddie Howe hasn't had a win since Manchester City in 16 games, 15 defeats and 1 draw. Actually, he doesn't have a win only against 3 clubs in the Premier League, Manchester City, Luton Town and Bournemouth. Let's see if he can break the duck tomorrow. Erling Haaland has 100 goals for Manchester City in League and Cup, the fastest player to do so in their history, but only one of these 100 goals is against Newcastle in 4 appearances so far. Alexander Isak, if fit, can make his 50th league start for Newcastle. I have a good feeling for tomorrow. Away the lads.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Andre. Hope you're coping with the second arrival at home. And it was, yes, that's who it was, Charlie George and Bob Geldof in that lookalike. Thank you, Peter Miles. It was Charlie George, a young Charlie George, yes.
Wow.
So there we go. Thank you for that. All right, Newcastle United take on Manchester City tomorrow. It is the early kickoff. It is at 12:30 at St. James's Park. And the backdrop of another interesting week at St. James's Park. Alexander Isak is very doubtful after missing training this week. He's got a broken toe. Callum Wilson still unavailable, as are Jamal Lascelles, Sven Botman, Lewis Miley, and Matt Targett is out with a breakout of eczema, which is very painful. It can be very painful depending on, the amount that you get. But thoughts going with Matt Targett, not pleasant at all. So he is ruled out as well. Man City have their own injury problems. Nathan Aki is out, as is Oscar Bobb, Kevin De Bruyne, and of course, as Andre mentioned, Rodri out for the rest of the season after sustaining that bad knee injury last weekend. Manchester City, of course, top of the table, unbeaten. 100% winning start, went belly up last week with a 2-2 draw against Arsenal. They have been in midweek action in the Carabao Cup. They beat Watford 2-1. And Erling Haaland does lie in wait, but his record against Newcastle isn't great. Unfortunately for him, he's only scored the 1 goal against Newcastle. Has missed 2 games against us, it has to be said, in that time. But still a big threat for Manchester City up front. Jared Gillette is the Australian-born referee, and he will be refereeing the game. I haven't had him for a while. The last time we had him was in the FA Cup 5th round game when Blackburn Rovers played. And we obviously won that game with the penalty shootout. And on VAR is Stuart Atwell. So, yes, this is a game I always look forward to, Mitch. I've got to be honest. I know it's a game we should be dreading. Maybe he's on current form, but this is a chance to show the Premier League what we can do. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I was speaking to you, Mitch.
Right. Yeah, I disappeared for a minute, mate. I think the connection's a bit dodgy.
All right.
Look, yeah, we look forward to the game. It's usually a really good game of football between 2 good footballing teams. And in some respects, yeah, not the game we want, but maybe it's the game we need. Something to spark us back into life, something to give a real reason to go for it. Perhaps the postponement in midweek's been a good thing. Eddie talked about being delighted to have everybody for training this week. I wonder about Isaac. He played that game against Fulham like somebody with an injury. He certainly didn't want to put his foot in a couple of times. That was very, very obvious. And then you've got to ask the question, was it wise to play him, knowing that he had a broken toe? And then he's had a reaction to playing with that broken toe. My gut feeling is that they'll find a way to get him to start, but is that in everybody's best interest if he's not 100%? But certainly from the noises he made during the press conference today, Eddie seems delighted to have had the full squad together for a longer period of time. And given news off the pitch today, we've got a reason to galvanise and bring everybody together. And don't underestimate the power of that. as a club, we are very sensitive to reactions on and off the pitch, and it's something that you could see as a club and a fan base and as a team, everybody coming together to have a real go at Man City. They're feeling it at the minute. They've lost Rodri, who's a real key player for them. And I think I'd like to see us just have a good go, play the best football we can, and let's see what comes out of the mixer.
Yeah, George, do you look forward to these games against Man City?
Always. If you're going to gauge how much progress your team's made, then you've got to do it against the best, and they're not just the best in the UK, and they're the best in Europe, if not the world. So you cannot get a better test than that. So I want to see my team going against the best, but I also want to see them putting a shift in and actually giving the best a game. And I think we can on the day. And with all the things that's happening, what a good time to pull it all together and give them a real game with the chairman sitting in the stand as well, which should be good for them. No, I'm looking forward to it like I do with most of the games against City, because you can guarantee it'll be exciting. The only person that's got to worry about the exciting bit is Steve Hasty, who sits next to me and has to watch what I'm doing with my bloody walking stick and everything else. So, no, it's seriously, yes, Steve, you're absolutely right. I do look forward to it. And I'd like to see us, give them a game, really have a go. The press conference, Eddie said last week that Isak was fine until the injection wore off on his toe, and that's why he disappeared. Part of why he disappeared in the second half against Fulham. Well, if it's that bad that he needs an injection, should we really be playing that somebody like that? My inclination would be to play somebody that's totally fit, and go for the game in that way. If he thinks Isak can give an advantage in going on, well, that's his choice. But I still like to see people who are going on totally fit. Eddie, of course, in his press conference, is a realist. Journalists were saying, would it matter because De Bruyne's not playing, because Rodri's not playing, and Howe just says, well, yeah, but they've got a whole bank of midfielders that turn them into a world-class team. It's not just two. So that's how we've got to play our game. And I think that's absolutely right. Whatever 11 they put on the pitch is going to be up for the game, and we're going to have to play at our best to keep them out. So let's do that. Let's give them a game and enjoy every minute of it. It's Haaland record against us. Well, he's didn't. Lascelles has kept him quiet. Burns kept him quiet. Botman's kept him quiet. Let's carry on with that. It could well be, of course. It's not keeping him quiet. It's stopping the feed into him from the wings and from elsewhere. So there's a lot of work to do. But I'm really looking forward to an exciting game and a positive result in my view.
Yeah, me too. The broken toe thing's interesting. I mean, Eddie seems to think it's going to be okay. I mean, a broken toe is a broken toe. There's not much you can do about it. At the end of the day, I've got a broken toe from playing football, and you just got to get on with it. And unfortunately, it's something that it's difficult. I find it, I just find it strange that Eddie would say that. He's played football himself. He must know plenty about broken toes. It's an issue. We don't know which toe it is. Is it his big toe? But his big toe, which foot's it on? God knows. But I mean, you just gotta get on with it. Really, with a broken toe, there's not a great deal you can do. I'm not sure in this day and age if you can pin them. If you pin it, that means he's gonna have an operation and be out for a while. So I'm not 100% sure about this broken toe. It'd be interesting to know what the situation is with it, but. He's just going to have to get on with it. Steve, Man City at home. Oh, you're on mute, Steve.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I love playing Man City. I love playing Chelsea. I love playing Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United. I feel privileged going to watch these teams not because of necessarily who they are, but I feel privileged when I see fans all around the world who watch these games on TV. I really do, because I've got friends who live overseas. I've got friends who have no allegiance to Newcastle United, but whenever I'm playing their team, they contact me and they say, I wish I was there. It must be great being able to watch. The atmosphere is fantastic, etc., etc. And I don't think we grasp sometimes these big games for what it means worldwide. And for that as well, is that brings the exposure for Newcastle United, which again, this is the big thing. Everything about Newcastle United now is about exposure worldwide. And we've talked about profit and sustainability, and we've talked about anti-competitiveness, and we've talked about third-party transactions. This is when the club gets bigger, and this is when your strength on your associated party transactions become much more stronger. And I listen to, and I know I'm diverting from the game here, but I listened to what Keith was saying, and you know what, Keith, profit and sustainability rules are quite important, but more important is the fact that the associated party transaction rules that they brought in stifle clubs' profit and sustainability. It's the two of them go like that. They completely cancel each other out, if you like. It's ridiculous. But getting back to Man City, yeah, it's a game I'm really, really looking forward to. If it was me, if I was picking the team tomorrow, I would certainly find a slot for Tonali. I would bring Longstaff back in, and I would play Bruno and Joe Linton as a midfield four. I'd have Longstaff playing a little bit deeper, and I think this game gets won and lost in midfield whenever you play Man City. I would play Gordon and Bonds as your two strikers, dragging the Man City three, because they play with the three, dragging them apart to allow the likes of Tonali and Joe Linton to break in and exploit the space that they can create. And I would have Trippier and Hall as your fullbacks, and I'd have Shaw and Byrne obviously as your two centre backs. I wouldn't risk Isak. I think that we've had too many situations where we've gone into games with injured players. You go into a game with injured players, you're going in with 10.5. You can't afford to go in with 10.5 or even 10 men when you're playing a top club like Man City, because let's face it, Guardiola has a sniff, he'll exploit it. So we've got to go in with a clear head. The performance last week was not good enough. Eddie said it's not good enough. We all knew it wasn't good enough. The players have got to realise that it wasn't good enough, and they've got to lift themselves, and they've got to start getting about and doing exactly what they are capable of doing. Whether they can do it or not is a different matter, but we know that they're capable of playing really, really good football, and they shouldn't go into this game against Man City scared. Having said that, it's going to be very, very difficult. But you know what? We looked at last week's game, we looked at this week's game, and went into last week's game full of optimism. I'm not so optimistic this time, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe my optimism blew it for us last week. So I'm not so optimistic, but I still think that we can pick up a point. And if we play to our potential and we play to a game plan that Eddie has drilled into them over the week, there's no reason why we can't come away with 3 points.
Okay, Keith. Big game tomorrow, 12:30 kick-off as well. First game, Man City coming into town. What's your feelings about the game? And Steve's given us his team. I mean, if you've got an idea of what you would do, I mean, it's the conundrum. You know, Eddie was asked if he knew his strongest team. He certainly doesn't, I don't think.
I'd let Steve Hasty go in the backroom squad and have some input, because some of the things he's saying make sense. There's a lad, Sean Longstaff, gets a lot of abuse of our fan base, but if you watched that game last week and you don't think Sean Longstaff was missing or was better than what was out there, you've never kicked a football in your life. You've never played. You've never played Wednesday morning league, let alone Saturday or Sunday morning league. Because I tell you what, the ground he covers, he does the worst, ugliest job. He gets tortured for what you get tortured for, running and leaving a leg in. And he'll always have his critics, because he's not the flair player that Bruno or Tonali and that is. But Christ almighty, you know, you look at someone like Willock, he gives you a lot when you go forward, you're in possession. When you haven't got the ball, he doesn't give you anything. And Longstaff is the one that does all that graft. And I know it's debatable. I know people chuck pelters at me for saying it, but why do you think every manager loves him? It's like when Dummett was at Newcastle. Every manager rated him because he never hated. He always did his bit. And Longstaff gives Newcastle something that was missing last week, and that's a commitment. But this is either the best or the worst game we could have. It's as simple as that. And I've got two apologies to make. The first one is for feeling negative, because our points total is not commensurate with our performances. And anyone who thinks it is, anyone who thinks we deserve the points we've got, the big drinking. But it's not the case. I mean, I don't know where my pitch has gone, but I think I've just been thrown off screen here. Like, I don't know if I'm still on.
You're still there, mate.
All right. Aye.
Oh, well, I'm still on, but it's the end of the studio again. So for me, I can't.
Two Keith Pattersons now. Now, don't start arguing with yourself, Keith.
Oh, he's good looking, mate.
I'll kick that one. There we go. I've got you.
So for me,
two thorns there.
I know. I just see this good looking bloke over there, the same top one as me. I thought, well, he's looking well. So tomorrow, I can't wipe out them images of getting peppered off Tottenham at home. You know, we're like hanging up. I can't forget that for 20 minutes we got battered off Southampton, and I can't. You know, when we were away at Bournemouth or whatever, and we like, you know, got that VAR decision. So I can't wipe that out and then think, bring on the world's best team and we'll knock hell out of you. So tomorrow I think we'll get beat, and it's not something I'm comfortable saying because I'm the eternal optimist and I'm the bloke who always thinks we're going to do it. I always put daft scores in, but and the reason I do that is because I think, you know, if Eddie goes with his 4-3-3. I think Pep will have already worked the plan out to beat it, and if we change, they'll change. And I just think he's tactically brilliant. I'd love us to start and do what, like, was it Brentford did, where they scored in so many, like the first minute or something. So yeah. Brentford just went at them, and there was like a disrespect for how good they were. But I think with a lot of these great teams, I think if you don't attack them, you get beat. And I think what Newcastle are particularly bad at is sitting back and waiting. You know, I mean, we've heard rumours why it was unsustainable to do the excessive training and high press. If that's the case, you know, I don't expect us out battling Man City, but I'd love to see it. I think high pressing them and going at them and giving it a go is the only way we'll get anything out this game tomorrow. I think if we sit back, I think we'll get beat. And they've just got that much. And Steve Hasty said something which I want to comment before I go is that you said about PSR and APT. The reality, Steve, is you get it, and APT is bigger than PSR for us. I'll tell you why. If we can get APT back, and we get the sponsorships in, our PSR goes through the roof. Exactly. And that's why PSR was enough until Newcastle got took over, and that's why they had to then go to APT, and it was called the Newcastle rules because they realised Newcastle could outcommission PSR with sponsorship. So you're right, APT is the big one for us. If we get that, we home and dry. The other thing I want to say, the other apology, is that I saw like Andy Ford said, you know, I don't want to talk about this whole anti-competition and what's happening with Nick DeMarco. And I apologise because it's not everybody's cup of tea. And what I've been doing is staying offline and researching and talking to people to try and see if there's any way you can win a battle. And for me, Andy, I respect you massively, mate. And I'm sorry if I've, you know, upset you Friday night. It certainly wasn't my intention. But I would say to you, would you rather talk about Newcastle United playing Man City tomorrow with 3 or 4 world-class players, or would you not rather that the shackles were taken off And we found a way so that tomorrow's game was between two superpowers where you had 22 world-class players on that pitch, because that's what should happen in a fair and open market. So that's what I was touching on. And where you say I'd rather talk about the game, I think we all would. We all would. And that's why tonight's show has been littered with things like illness, which we've had to respect. But it's also littered with fans who are frustrated because it's an unfair market. And that's why we've touched what Nick DeMarco said, is that this game tomorrow should be about two top European powers fighting it out, and not Man City with 14 world-class players and us with 4 or 5.
Yeah. But I think we got the balance right tonight. To be perfectly honest, it's been a show where we could have got stuck on one subject for the whole night, and we didn't. Let's get the predictions before we finish. Mitch, the dice. You're on mute, Mitch, are you? Yes.
Right. The dice says 2-1.
2-1 to the Tune. What do you say?
I think it'll be the opposite way around. I think we'll lose by the odd goal in 3.
Right, okay. George?
Well, I got hit in the ear by the dice, so 2-1 to Newcastle is from me as well. Ever the optimist and with Newcastle United. I just have a feeling that the shellacking that I've been talking about for 6 weeks might turn out to be a 2-1 win against Manchester City.
Okay, I went for a 2-2 last night. Keith, just reiterate what your prediction is.
I'm sorry to say it, but I've got to put honesty before. My brain's got to talk for me heart. I think I'd be pleased that if we came in tomorrow, we got beat 3-1, and it was respectful and we competed, because I think I'm scarred with them first 5 games. We're well behind Man City at the minute.
Okay, Steve.
My heart was going to go for a 1-1 draw, but my head's going to go for a 3-1 defeat.
Same as
Great
me.
stuff. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. Over 1,000 watching for the best part of an hour.
Wow.
700 of you watching on YouTube. The rest of you watching on Twitter. Jump over onto YouTube. Search NUFC Matters. Hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Back tomorrow with the Northeast Breakfast Show crew, who have got their own podcast now. 3's a crowd. 10:30 to 11. Before I head up to the game, and then back on Sunday at 5 p.m. with the professionals. But for now, thanks to Keith, thanks to Steve, thanks to George, thanks to Mitch. And Keith, we'll have to get you back once that Man City case is announced, maybe next month. Look forward to it.
Look forward.
Take care, mate.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.